In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? The first thing you see about our horror film is the fact that it's in black and white contrast. When deciding whether we were going to keep it in colour or black and white contrast, we weren't sure whether it would look too traditional and old-fashioned or whether it would actually be a positive and add more climax to the audience. We wanted it to be more of an elegant film in terms of historical looking and more sophisticated. We produced the whole of our film in black and white. When editing, obviously we had it in colour and we could choose to have it in black and white contrast. And whilst we were deciding, we realised that black and white contrast looks much more effective in terms of the way the film looks altogether. It adds more effect and detail to the surroundings, for example the trees, the leaves and the effects on the floor and the lake and the way the birds come in as well. It just overall made more of an effect on the audience and climax and tension built more than it did in colour. This actually challenges the normal typical forms and conventions of real media products, because nowadays most horror films are actually in colour, and if they are in black and white sometimes it will be in the flashbacks. Now me and Sophie did decide that we might use our whole film in colour and then just use the flashbacks in black and white, but we did feel like the black and white contrast was much more better for our film. We chose to focus on more of an old-fashioned looking film because we felt it would develop more tension and climax and more effect on the situation that's happening in the film, and the terms of the fact that it's a horror film, that it'll actually develop the initial ideas of the audience towards the film and attracting the audience because it's more of an abstract, different film to watch. When researching the history of horror films, when they were still black and white, we found that the film Psycho was quite an important one in terms of black and white films. That was well known and used typical codes and conventions in terms of the female woman being a victim by the villain, and this sort of reflects on the way our film is produced as well and the storyline of our film, and we wanted to follow on Alfred Hitchcock's kind of ideas of the film Psycho and put it into ours as well, and that's presented and shown in terms of the way the young girls are victims of the villain who is out to kill them. Relating back to the Alfred Hitchcock film that we, as Sophie and I, watched in our research, we have a picture here of the Alfred Hitchcock DVD cover. We also have a picture of one of the screenshots from the film. As you can see here, the woman, the victim, the female, looks very frightened as she is being chosen and victimised by the villain in terms of being frightened of what he may do to her, although the audience cannot see this. We wanted to show that in terms of our film as well and the storyline. As you can see here, we've also done the same in our film. In terms of them relating, they're both in black and white. Obviously we got our initial ideas from the Alfred Hitchcock film, Psycho. The ideas in terms of black and white and how we felt the black and white horror film looks more effective and more realistic to horror than colour. And the Alfred Hitchcock film helped us to do so and add to our ideas. As you can see here, Ellie, one of the characters in our film, the teenage girl, shows the victim of one of the villains as she knows somebody is watching over her. Here in the Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho, you can see the woman is a victim also of a villain. you can see how they both relate to each other, and we've tried to make them look similar. It has helped us develop our ideas to conclude our horror film. In terms of real media products and how our film is the same or different in terms of forms and conventions, we feel that our horror film challenges real media products in the way that we have gone back into past time when horror films were in black and white and they were more dramatised and more bigger and more interesting when it comes to the storyline and the way that the characters present themselves in scary moments. We also feel that it does develop the real media products in terms of they are similar to how real horror films are at the moment, but ours is just more in the past, more traditional, and does challenge more than it does develop. In our horror film, we have used the forms and conventions of real media in terms of our characters. We have used young girls who are young and vulnerable to portray the villain's victims. As you can see here, we have pictures here from our film to show the two young girls who are aged between 5 and 8. They are on their own and you can see they are vulnerable. Any audience will see that. This definitely shows forms and conventions of real media, as it is often that young girls are the victims of villains because they are so powerless and have no dominance in terms of their character. These two young girls are seen in the flashbacks, and it goes with forms and conventions because it is usual that young girls are the victims. You can also see here the teenage girl Ellie. She is also a young teenager. She is pretty and she is attractive. This goes with forms and conventions of real media because it is usual that there should be a pretty young female to attract the male audience to a film. This girl here will attract the male audience in terms of something to watch when the film is going on. These girls show vulnerability compared to the man in the film, the villain, which we see here. As you can see, we don't see a lot of the man there, the villain. All we see is black outline. This is a contrast with the things we see with the young girls. We see here with Ellie, we look into her eyes and the audience can see her emotions, her feelings, and we can tell what's going on in the film. We also get that with the young girls here. We can see their reaction towards when seeing the villain, and we can also see them happy and giggling when running across the lagoon. Here we do not see any emotion from the villain, and this again uses the forms and conventions because when it comes to the villain, the audience tend to not be able to see what is going on, and this makes it more scary and watchable for the audience because they want to know what's going on and what's happening with the villain, what he's thinking and what he's going to do next. We also see another picture here where we don't see much of the villain. We see the back of him on a low angle, the same with this one. They're both low angles, looking up at the villain to show that he has power, dominance, and he is watching the girls. Again, we do not see any features of the man, just the fact that he is wearing baggy clothing and dark clothing, which represents his character in terms of dark and scary and the fact that he is a nasty character. Another picture is this one here. This again shows we from a far distance that we cannot see what the character is like. We just see his face, but we can't see how he's feeling. We can tell from his posture and the way he's standing that he is aggressive and ready to get the girls, like he did when he got the young girl, one of the sisters, in the past. But again, we do not see much of him. This again uses the forms and conventions, because in real media we do not see or know much about the villain in the beginning of the film, which makes the audience feel tense, and it builds a climax for the audience to find out what is going to happen soon in the film. Having the man as the source of evil uses the forms and conventions of real media products in the way that it is typical that a man is generally seen in society as having power and dominance over women and girls, already to then be shown in a film the same way is obvious. We kept this idea because we felt it would be most appropriate for our storyline and would keep the viewers gripped, because they know that he looks and is perceived as grungy and a horrible looking man, and the audience will be on edge wondering what's going to happen to the girls because they are so young and vulnerable. Sophie and I didn't decide to go against and challenge the forms of real media in terms of having the male as the villain. We decided to keep the male, as we felt that it would keep to our storyline, make it more simple instead of trying to make the storyline too different and not so easy to follow. We felt that because we were only doing an opening sequence of about 2 minutes, we didn't want to use the girls or someone else as the villain, because we felt that it'd make it too complicated and too hard to understand to follow in terms of what the storyline is bringing further on. We also felt this was a very realistic scenario in terms of real life media. These sort of things do happen in real life, and we felt that we could educate people in terms of older adults who may watch our film, because it is often that parents let children go out on their own to play, and even though in the past, years back, people were more accepted to run around, children go and play wherever they want without their parents being worried that there were people out there who could harm them, whereas nowadays people are more aware and there are more people who are out there to possibly hurt young children who are seen on their own. We felt that this might educate parents to see that children do go off on their own and these sort of things could happen, so it also could be educational to warn parents as well. Overall, we have stuck with the idea of having a villain against and the young girl as the victim, showing the man and the girl as a contrast. In terms of breaking the standard conventions, we haven't used in our film props 8 characters. We haven't added them all because it wasn't necessary for our film, although we could have added it further on, later on in the film, but in our opening sequence it wasn't necessary. In terms of ending our horror film, we have left it on a cliffhanger, and sometimes it's better to let the audience create their own preferred ending instead of giving them on a plate. In terms of setting and surroundings in our film, we have used the forms and conventions of real media products. We've used our setting right near a lake by the lagoon. This is a form of real media because usual horror films are near a dangerous, secluded area where, for example, in our film there's lots of water, so there's obviously chances of danger, and realistically our character Ellie could fall into the water at any time. The fact that it's near a lake uses conventions and forms in terms of the fact that it is dangerous in that area, and where she is, near lakes is going to be dangerous. So that uses the forms and conventions. The fact that it is in a secluded area where no one else can be seen in the film, it makes the audience feel the danger, and it puts them on edge to feel like they don't know what's going to happen next, whether the character could be in danger in terms of falling in, or whether other dangerous things are happening around her. Our film, we feel, relates to the film Friday the 13th in terms of setting. This is shown here. As you can see, in Friday the 13th, one of the main settings is near water, in a lake. Another setting area in this film is here. This is a prime example of how we wanted our film to look like. The fact that it's right near a lake, the establishing shot of this setting shows how we wanted ours to look as well. The fact that it's near a lake, and the fact that you can see the whole view of where the lake follows with the woodland around it. That is exactly how we wanted our film to look. So we wanted to take some ideas from Friday the 13th, the film, to put into our film. Another picture that shows this is this one here. As you can see, there is a lot of woodland area. That is exactly what our film is supposed to look like, in terms of the fact that there's trees and woodland area around them, which obviously shows danger, and the fact that there could be danger in the woods, and as the audience do see, there is, and where the character Ellie doesn't. So all of this, the picture of the water, the lake and the woodland, is also shown in our film here. This is an example of our film where you can see the lake here and the woodland area surrounding in the secluded area. The fact that it looks scary, and the fact that you can see nobody else around, and the fact that the birds go through here, shows that it is a quiet area where danger is prime example. You can also see here this is the setting with the lake around, where there's a embankment area where the character sits. All of this uses the forms and conventions, because in real media, in horror films, it is important that there are danger around to enhance the fact that the horror film does include danger in it as well. The setting is an important part of the film because it sets the scene so that the audience know what is to happen in the film. It follows the storyline and is important to make the story more interesting, and adds to the way the characters perform and use the storyline in terms of their acting. Having the setting all the way through like this sets the scene, and also uses the conventions of scary, secluded areas where danger is upon the characters, and the audience will see this and it will make them feel more worried and scared about what is to happen next. I feel like our contrast of the black and white adds to the setting and the effect of the way the contrast of the black and white enhances the detail and the different kinds of leaves on the floor. It also enhances the setting and the way it looks. It makes it look more interesting and intriguing for the audience, which makes the audience want to watch more of the film. As soon as the audience see the focus on the villain, the transition shots become a lot quicker and the pace increases, so that it is more racy with the change of transitions and the duration of shots. This makes the audience feel up, more scared and focused on what is going to happen next, because the shots are so quick that the audience need to focus on what's happening next. And the fact that these shots do this, it uses the forms and conventions of when danger is upon the characters, shots do become quicker, so the audience will know this is the part where danger is going to come in for the characters, for example the teenage girl, because the man's chasing her. We felt that this uses the forms and conventions, as when we went into research and looked into the film Friday the 13th, as you can see here, from Friday the 13th, the villain's feet are rushing through leaves in the woods, which obviously the pace is increased in that as well. So in our film we decided to develop the ideas on that, and we use the same sort of thing here, through the leaves going past the lake, because we know, as the audience know, the teenage girl Ellie had just been sitting there, so we know that the man is following her steps and is chasing her as she runs away. So here we do see that the man's the man's feet is running through the leaves, which we are trying to copy from Friday the 13th, or as you can see, develop the ideas. And as you can see here as well, the shots are so quick that when I had to take a picture of the video, it was too quick to actually get a shot of the feet, because the feet here are running so quickly through the leaves, the transitions are so short, so it's hard to get a snapshot of that. But these definitely develop the ideas from Friday the 13th, in the way that the man's feet are just from the side, you only get to see the shoes and the bottom of his legs, which obviously shows again that we're not seeing much of the villain in terms of what his facial features are like, but in terms of speed that he is walking, we know that he is the villain, and we know that he is out to get the girl, as we've just seen her running away. This obviously increases the heart rate possibly of the audience to realise that danger is about to happen, and it makes the audience worry for the girl, because we know that he is close to her as we've just seen her run away. The type of shot we have actually used here is a close-up, but it is sort of slanted side view. Obviously here it is from behind, so to develop the idea, we've used sort of a side shot behind the shot close-up of the shoes, and also here we've used a point of view shot. We felt this would be quite a good shot, because it shows the audience that this man is rushing to, the villain is rushing to find the girl to possibly hurt her like he did to her sister. It uses a variety of different shots instead of just using a behind or side the shot. We've just also added a point of view, which also makes it more interesting with a different variety. Referring back to the question, all of these shots use forms and conventions of real media products. The establishing shot is a shot usually used at the start of a film to show the audience where the setting is placed. This helps the audience focus on where it is and where the setting is going to be used. The point of view shot is a shot from the person's view that is holding the camera looking down. This type of angle is used to show different types of shots from the subject's perspective. It is usually edited in such a way that it's obvious whose point of view it is. In R1, in our picture here, it shows the point of view of the teenage girl as she is walking across the leaves in the woods. This here high angle shot is a typical shot used to make a subject look smaller than it is. This type of shot is used from a high angle to look down on a character to make them look small and less important. This shot is not only a long shot but also a wide shot. It is to show the full length of the character in the scene, and it is to intend to place it in the relationship of its surroundings to show what is around her. This can also show the character's vulnerability, because we can see how big everything is around her. This is a common shot used in Forms and Conventions in other films. This close-up shot is a standard shot used in many films, and it is regularly used to display some surrounding of the character, but to also start to show emotion and the way they are feeling close up. An over-the-shoulder shot is as if somebody is looking over that character's shoulder, looking down at what they are looking at too. This could show that it could be the sister that died that is watching over her, looking down at the picture of the both girls when they were younger. This shot is typically used in other films. This type of shot is usually used in a discussion between two people, but in our case, in our film, we've used it to signify this locket and the fact that the girl is looking at it and show its significance and value. This canted angle is to show disorientation and confusion as the girls enter the scene. In our film, we have used it to give a dramatic effect to portray unease and desperation in the action, to show that the girls are vulnerable and it is going to cause unease to the audience. This mid-shot is used in our film to show a personal view on the way the girls are feeling towards a situation that is happening in that time. We not only see their facial expressions, but we see their gestures too. This is a clear view of the way they are feeling in our film. This extreme close-up shot is to show extreme detail and evidence of how the character is feeling. In this shot, we used extreme close-up on the character to emphasise on her eyes and show her moving them back and forth to show how worried and scared she is about the situation she is and the fact that she can hear someone following her. This is the soundtrack we used all the way through our horror film. It's called Voices in the Mist and it's from the Woman in Black film. We decided to use this soundtrack because we felt it had some really good high-pitched, sharp noises that make you jump and that make the audience focus more on the storyline. It also, when we added it to our horror film opening sequence, we found that it just so happens that the points where we needed the sounds to jump and high-pitched noises to go louder and quieter fit in really well with the different parts that happen in our opening sequence when the girl is hearing the villain behind her, and also when the villain makes her jump with the noises in the background. So that worked really well, and that's the reason we chose this backing track. We found this backing track develops the forms and conventions of real media products, because obviously this type of backing track is usually used in horror films, but because our horror film is set in a traditional time where it's black and white and more historical type of horror film, we chose this soundtrack because we felt that it developed the usual soundtracks in terms of it sounds more old-fashioned and more traditional, whereas usually in real media products the soundtrack is usually just noises or sounds, but we felt that this soundtrack flowing through the whole of our film would add to the tension, the climax, and the way the audience felt towards our horror film, and we felt that it would help them engage to focus more on what's going on, and it would also to the points where it makes you jump with the loud noises of, for example, the drums, the different sounds and things like that. We felt that it would add more interest to the audience to carry on watching, and it gives a different feel to how horror films can be presented rather than just certain noises that can be added in. So we really felt that this developed and also challenge certain forms and conventions of sound in backing tracks of horror films, because we use different types of sounds that would usually be used in horror films. When it comes to sounds in backing tracks of horror films, it's all about high-pitched noises, unusual sounds, and sounds that you don't usually hear together. that sound disorientated and unusual. And we feel that this backing track really use the forms and conventions of real media products in terms of backing tracks, because all of these do happen in this backing track of sounds. There's a lot of jumpy sounds, a lot of high-pitched noises, a lot of noises that are hard to determine what they are, which enhances the disorientation in the certain situations happening in the storyline and the situations happening around you. How does your media product represent particular social groups? The young girls in our film are presented as vulnerable and innocent. This is portrayed in the way they are giggling, running around and shown smiling whilst running. The way they are dressed in their nicely dressed clothes represents them as highly upper class children, in the way they are dressed in nice coats, boots and dresses. This signifies that they are from a high up social class group. Here we can see the girl's coat is very nice in terms of the way it's presented. This shows here as well, the other girl who's wearing a coat, shows that what she is wearing is very nice and upper class. It would be very obvious if they were from a low class type of family, because obviously our film is set in a traditional type, and back then clothes would have been more ragged and untidy if they were from lower class families. Although in the film we see the children on their own running around with no parents around them, this could be perceived as them having families that are not so caring towards them. Although back when we want to present our film, back in the day, people were more lenient and not aware of people that could hurt or upset their children if they were on their own. Whereas nowadays we are more aware of children's safety and the fact that people like the gentleman in our film could be out there to hurt them on their own. The way the girls are presented in terms of how unaware they are about the danger of this man that's near them shows their social group as being quite upper class in terms of not knowing the surroundings. They've obviously not been taught about the worries of the people around them when they're on their own, which shows that they're used to nice people and people that wouldn't be out to hurt them. In terms of outfits, we wanted the girls to come across from highly upper class families. In terms of the way the male character is dressed, highlights the fact that he is from a lower class social group. This is a complete contrast to the way the girls were dressed, neat and tidy, whereas the male character is dressed in ragged clothes, plain, boring, and boots that show that he is from a lower class social group. The man is presented in a strong, powerful and dominant way, in the way he walks in our film, the way his posture is. The camera angle is constantly looking up at him to present him as a high, dominant character, and he's also perceived in a rough and dodgy way, the way he drags himself across the floor and is, in terms of the way he looks and the way he walks, shows him as a lower class citizen. The fact that this male character is out to hurt these young girls could show that he is the type of character that has no ambitions or job. This is a typical stereotype of working class citizens or people that are dressed down in a way that makes people stereotype them in this way. This automatically puts the male character in a low social group through the unconscious mind of people's thoughts from the viewers. A theory that viewers could put on this male character could be the fact that the way we as the viewers do not see the male's character's face could highlight the fact that this man is hidden in society in terms of having no job or life because of the situation he has put himself in, trying to go out and hurt little girls. The only problem with this is, in terms of his social group, this could unintentionally present the hypodermic needle theory, whereby the viewers, the consumers, watch our film and believe that every male character is seen in this way. This would be the hypodermic needle theory in terms of us as the product producers making the audience believe that every male character is like this, or every male in society is like this, and we wouldn't want to perceive this in the wrong way. In terms of the way it shows men in their social group, this could unintentionally portray men in a way that all men that are dressed like this are bad and do things like this in the woods. We wouldn't want to show that in terms of whole social groups of men. The way we see the male character grabbing the locket in his hand in a fist way could show his anger and the fact that he is out to get the girls. This could show his social group as being low class and could show him in a negative way in terms of his social era. This is a complete stereotype because obviously upper class people could also do this and be in this type of character whereby they go and do the things that this male character in our film is doing also. This is just a typical stereotype that it must be a working class man just because he is showing aggression and anger. In terms of social groups, I think this young character, this teenage girl, is presented in a well-off social group in terms of the fact that she is wearing a fur coat and has a locket around her neck. Now, most people in the times where we were trying to present our film wouldn't have fur coats, and teenage girls wearing a locket is something expensive, so not many people would have that. Back then, if people were seen in fur coats, it was presented in conventions that they were from a high social class and were well off. In terms of the way she looks, the teenage girl has long blonde hair and has a very pretty face, naturally. This puts her in a social group that is popular and has lots of friends. This is a stereotypical point that viewers would give because not many girls would show such confidence when entering such a secluded area on her own. The fact that she walks into the lagoon quite confidently and high status, this goes against the usual conventions of how girls are perceived. They're usually shown as vulnerable, like the young girls were in the beginning of the film. Although I'm sure as soon as the viewers saw her, they would automatically assume that she is going to be in trouble. We can tell she is from a high social group in the way that she walks into the lagoon knowing that what had happened to her sister, she had gone there on her own yet again. Although soon we see the conventions come back to the film, the usual conventions and forms of a girl in terms of her losing her confidence and beginning to run away as soon as she sees the lower class male character joining her and listening, knowing that it is him again. At the beginning, the camera angles tended to be on eye level or looking at low level to show that she has power. As soon as we see the male character enter the scene and see that he is following her and trying to find her, the camera angle begins to become more quickly transitioned and duration become quicker in terms of the different shots. This shows that her confidence and social class begins to come down when she loses her confidence. Another part of the teenage girl's clothing that shows she is from a high social group is the lace dress here. This shows that she is from a high social group because lace back then was seen as sexy and sassy, and only women that were from high social classes wore lace. Straight away, the viewers would portray the hegemony of the predominance of the one social class being the upper class of the girls. Overall, I think this challenges the stereotype of the upper classes dominating and having a detrimental effect on the lower classes, because in our film I think it is portrayed as the lower class having detrimental effect on the upper class. This is probably due to the typical male dominance over the young female girls. What kind of media institution might distribute your media product and why? The type of media institution that may distribute our media product would be Lionsgate, because they have a very strong audience in their division of horror section. They produce a separate identity when presenting horror films in terms of having a logo with the normal sky background, and then when it's a horror film the sky goes red. And for our product we need full attention to allow as many viewers to witness our horror film and to watch our product in terms of primary and secondary in cinemas and buying our DVD, so that if it was a real product it would get lots of consumers that would be paying to see our film, to allow us to regain all the money it costs to make it and to receive a profit as well. We would also choose this institution because they distribute all of the Saw films that were also successful. They produced a sequel for these films, which means they were very widely watched by viewers and gained lots of consumers. This is exactly what we need for our product because our age range could be varied. The sequel of the films from Saw relate to our film in terms of horror and unusual settings and surroundings. Lionsgate would also distribute our product because they distributed films such as The Cabin in the Woods and Cabin Fever, which both were sequels as well. And both these films relate to our film The Locket, which is based in a woodland area near a lake and relates to people being in a secluded area. We also like the way the company has their own horror section in terms of producing and having a separate logo for their horror films. This is something we try to do in terms of having the cat's eye here and here different when a horror film is shown and produced. We did this on Photoshop and this is explained in the YouTube video here with me and Sophie.
Researching into different institutions to use to represent our horror genre film opening sequence, we discovered that different institutions add different colours on it to represent the horror genre. An example of this is Lionsgate. We thought they'd be a good company to use for our film because they distribute a lot of horror films, and obviously we're doing a horror film now, so we thought they're a big company and we can use them for our film as well. When they use horror films, they change the colour of the sky to red. So we thought of a good idea on our logo, with the cat's eye, we're going to change it to red. So it's sort of like the Lionsgate. We feel this is a really good idea as instantly the audience will know that it's a horror film because obviously the colour red relates to fear, blood, death and danger. So we decided to do this for the eye on our Black Cat production logo. And obviously normally it's just a normal colour eye, so it'll be quite clear to the audience when it's going to be a horror film because it will come up on screen whether it's the red eye or normal, and it will make it really clear whether it's a horror film or not. So when we wanted to do this, we researched on the internet of how we could do this. So we used the program Photoshop so we could change the colour of the eye. We found a video online of how to do it, so then we took this research and used it to carry out.
Yeah, we went onto the internet and researched how to change the colour of the eye, and we both sat and did it together, changing the colour of the eye using different tools and stuff. So yeah.
We done this by selecting the section of the eye and adding a layer on top of it, and we then changed this layer to a red colour, which would represent horror.